Summertime in the prairies. Some call it the dog days of summer. There is nowhere in the world like it. Hot summer days, a slight breeze running through the great province of Alberta, and of course, our good buddy Saskatchewan. Things seem to be heading in the right direction. As of July 1st, 2021, Alberta is open for business, and Saskatchewan is on the road to recovery as well. In the distance, an election looms. Will Justin and his Liberals be brought back to guide this country out of this mess? Or will Canadians choose a different path? It's not going to be the Green Party, that's for sure. A fall election in reality is not that far away, but I choose to enjoy the best summer ever, which my government has branded for me. Hell, I've been told to stay home and wear a mask for the last year and a half. Why not enjoy my ass off this summer as Jason Kenney has told us to do? Summer is here, but there's so much to discuss. The lads are back tonight with a vengeance. Geoff is charged up as his football squad is on the verge of a European Championship. 2 World Wars and 1 World Cup. England will prevail this weekend, I guarantee it. The Stanley Cup is still being contested, and it's the middle of July. Our Saskatchewan correspondent Beau joins us to discuss the happenings of the day in Canada, and I'm pretty sure that I owe Geoff a steak. Screw you, Dwayne Johnson, you son of a bitch. Stick around tonight and join us as we will enlighten you, the dear listener, with our very vast discussion on many topics. Welcome to episode 31 of Those Canadian Lads. Firstly, boys, before we start, I have a trivia question for you. Did you know what happened 25 years ago tonight in the world of sports entertainment?
25 years ago, I'm going to say Owen Hart died.
Beau, do you have an answer? That would be wrestling.
It would be wrestling.
You said sports entertainment.
Yes, wrestling.
That's you know what? I'm going to probably go with that. I have no idea. I really don't. I have no idea.
All right. Okay. 25 years ago tonight, Hulk Hogan turned heel for the first time in his career, joining the New World Order in WCW.
Woo!
Hollywood Hogan, baby.
If we could only go back to those days.
25 years ago, Beau. 25 years ago, life was good. You know, we're talking the 90s, buddy. The 90s.
Yep. No internet. No goofy.
Oh, there was internet.
Well, I guess, yeah.
But
dial up.
You'd have to go through the... Sorry. Anyway.
Much different.
Geoff, Beau, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back. And lots to talk about, especially in the political world. I mean, things are opening up. Things are starting to come back to somewhat normal. So we can touch on all these things. And I'm excited for the talk tonight.
And Jeffrey, are you charged up after your lads of England pulled through the victory by cheating in the world of European soccer?
The virtue of cheating.
Yeah, that was not a penalty.
No, I agree it wasn't a penalty. But VAR doesn't work. The soccer world needs to realize this, that VAR is a joke. But you know what? There's bad calls in every game. There's bad calls in every sport. And the refs did not come through on this one. I do feel bad for Denmark. Had they not been playing England, they would have been the team I would have been cheering for, as they were the Cinderella story with Christian Eriksen, falling in the first game and not being able to compete in the tournament. We wish him all the best, of course. And, it's unfortunate that their tournament had to come to an end. Fortunately enough for me and other England fans, we march onwards and we bring footy home for the first time in a long time. So no, I'm in a good mood, obviously, actually. And it'd be, hopefully my employer is not listening and figures out that for 3 hours today, I did not work while watching this stupid game. So no, but I'm ready to go. So before we get going, because Beau had mentioned we're going to do some of the political talk tonight. Admittedly, I'm a little bit behind the times. I've been ignoring things. As Brad has alluded to, we are currently in the best summer out ever. As of Canada Day, I haven't worn a mask once, and I'm enjoying that very much. Beau, what's the situation in Saskatchewan when it comes to that?
Saskie on Sunday, this Sunday, the 11th, we're done with masks. Everything else has been done except the mask. Scott Moe set a date for the 11th. Obviously, he didn't want to shift that date to, he'd be taking shots from the left for moving any date. So he stuck to his dates, and it's pretty much everything's normal right now. The only thing left is the mask. He came out strong the other day on the vaccine passports. Came on the Gormley show, said Saskatchewan will not entertain that, and it's technically against the law in Saskatchewan to ask if you've been vaccinated. It goes against the Saskatchewan Health Privacy Act. So he told employers on the radio that if you're an employer and you want to go down that road, you better get a hold of your lawyer. So things are looking good, and when he did that, he won a little bit of praise with me. I was quite impressed that he took a little bit of a lean to the freedom and liberty and not the commie system that everyone else is running.
There's the first commie of the night.
Yeah.
The first commie of the night, everyone. Hey, that son of a bitch, he actually lied. He was supposed to wait for a certain percentage of people to get vaccinated, but he was feeling the pressure to open up. I know Beau's phoning the Premier's office off the hook, and he must have listened to you and said, "Hey, Beau's calling me again. Open her up. Who cares? Let's get that football."
That's right. He clued in. He realized that we're done. Our vax numbers just came to a standstill. I don't even know if we've still hit the number. It just came to a standstill. So
it was weeks ago.
And I actually got on the John Gormley show the other day too. I sent that to you, Brad. Did you see that?
Yeah. I did. Yeah, you're a radio. You're in the mainstream now, Beau. You're not just podcast Beau.
I called in, and they had Ryan Miley on, the NDP leader here, and he was pushing his vaccine passports, and I had a small.
He sounds like a schoolboy.
He's a doctor, so of course he is a schoolboy.
Yeah,
and he's a commie, and I was at my desk working, listening to this man on the radio, and I snapped out. I had to phone. I was just like, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to punch out this computer. I got a call. And I got on. I got cut off after a minute and a bit, but it was good.
Nobody gets Beau more fired up than communists. I love it. Yeah. It's like we're in the 1950s. It's the MacArthur
trials. Yeah,
it's like, that damn commies.
That's what we need.
So I got to ask, because I did not listen. I didn't hear this. You do have to pass this on to me, because I'm definitely intrigued to listen to this. What eventually got you cut off?
Well, I think I was the last guy in the segment. That was mainly the reason. So they're running short on time. But the question was, should the Mosaic Stadium require vaccine passports? And Ryan Miley was pushing passports for everything, and I phoned in and said in a quick minute that, we're already divided on gender, we're divided on race, we're divided on so many other issues. If we're going to entertain dividing everyone on our health status, I mean, you'd almost be nuts to even entertain this. And then I kind of went off a little bit on how quickly these vaccines have come into the market and the unknowns, and there's lots of things to still figure out, and we're just all of a sudden going to exclude people because they don't have a vaccine is this crazy talk. And then I think they pretty much said thanks for your comments and cut me off. But big point was I just see it as a huge divider again, right? We don't need any more division. I mean, we're already racists and bigots, and the last thing we need is everyone running around wondering who's vaccinated and who can't go in a store. It just seems like absolute craziness to me.
I'm trying to figure out if I can actually mute you on the podcast if you start getting wild.
No.
We can't.
We don't. No, we don't do that. Even if you could.
I want to say something here quick to you two. Now, we're going to get into this tonight, but Trudeau and his Bill C-36 and Bill 10, if these go through in the fall, this podcast will probably be toast by the fall. So we might as well run it hard and run it vulgar as we can, because it's probably going to be done in the fall when Canada puts that commie back in.
I do think you're probably right. I think Trudeau, I'm not going to follow you on the commie comment necessarily, but I do think Trudeau is going to win another government, if not a majority, unfortunately, based upon the what's available in the marketplace for voting. But you know what? if this podcast does get taken down by the government, that'll probably be the biggest feather in my cap, actually, in my lifetime. The fact that I was targeted by the government, I think I'll take that, actually.
Old Justin threw us into the clinker for calling him a commie.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, it's getting pretty scary. If I mean, I've heard people come on and say this is exactly what North Korea does. I mean, if this goes through, luckily the Senate shut it down, Bill 10.
You can't compare Canada to North Korea. They execute people in a football stadium by shooting them with like artillery guns. The guy's a maniac.
1990. Well, Canada did some pretty greasy things in his day. I don't know. I'm not. I'm just saying that the censorship is along the same lines. His Bill 36, Bill C-36. Have you read it, Brad? You'd get fined $70,000 if you are out of line. Yeah,
Beau, I'm trying to enjoy the best summer ever.
Okay.
Jason Kenney told me to enjoy myself, and I'm following suit. I am listening to the government on this one.
Brad's also, and I'm in the same bag. Brad and Geoff are what the government would call empty bags, coming for $70K from us.
True. That's pretty much everybody. That's pretty much everybody. I agree.
Yeah.
You know what though? I will agree with. So I was texting with our fine correspondent Beau from Saskatchewan the other day because I was losing my ever loving mind. So all the campaigning has started across Canada in regards to getting the majority for Trudeau, or I know Aaron O'Toole's been pushing the coronavirus story in the lab in Winnipeg, corruption story from the Conservative side. But I lost my mind because Justin Trudeau has come out and said by 2035, you'll not be able to buy a car with gasoline, any carbon-based car in Canada anymore. You'll have to buy an electric vehicle. And I didn't think of that from an environmental point of view. I'm like, this mother effer's trying to buy the votes in Ontario. He's trying to push the automotive sector and kill, again, the oil industry and energy industry in Western Canada. So I lost my shit, to be honest with you. You were fired upset. Up. Go ahead, Geoff.
Well, I was going to say, like, I'm not going to go down the environmental thing just because it didn't pop into my head, to be honest. But the thing I would think about, too, is like if you're the Liberal government, you're going to run on the platform that we're going to outlaw all vehicles that run on fossil fuels, effectively. Aren't you just hurting the people that can't afford vehicles then? Because let's face it, electric vehicles are not cheap. In fact, they're probably they're the most expensive vehicles on the road currently. So what, you're going to alienate, I don't know, everyone below the poverty line, alienate the middle class in regards to being able to afford a vehicle going forward? It doesn't seem like a plausible, at the end of the day, strategy to win any votes with what's going to happen.
Where are you going to charge these cars?
Well, that's just it too. Like, I know that, like, from another podcast I listened to in LA, the neighborhoods in Los Angeles that have more electric vehicles charged into the charging walls, they have brownouts because the infrastructure is not there in order to have that many people charging their vehicles and having that much of a draw on the system. As far as I can tell, I haven't seen any plans in regards to upgrading Canada's grid so that we're able to fix all these vehicles. Could you imagine a city like Toronto coming to a halt because there's no electricity for the vehicles to be charged?
We're shutting down coal-fired power plants. We're having less capacity in the marketplace for energy and power. So it doesn't make any sense. His plan doesn't make any sense. He's just clamoring for votes, the bastard.
Yeah, I think it's a red herring. I think it's just a campaign promise that will never be met, of course.
Yeah, and 2035 is a long ways away. I mean, I would... Well, it's not, but I mean, Trudeau will be long gone. I mean, the Liberal Party, I have no idea I mean, really right now, we have no idea what Canada looks like going forward. I mean, I'd be shocked if Canada's still an entire country by 2035. The way we're going, I foresee some sort of separation of power by then. I would assume it's getting pretty crazy. Like if Trudeau wins another election, and especially if he wins another majority, I don't know what the West I mean, what's Alberta going to do? You guys live in Alberta. Trudeau gets another 4-year mandate with no oversight, a majority. People, I think, are going to. I mean, that's going to have to be the straw that breaks.
That Buffalo party gets strong.
And the Maverick party.
And the Mavericks. And the U.S. Canada separation party. All the loons.
Well, I don't know if they're loons. I'd say the ones that are paying attention. No, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. They're the ones that are paying attention to know how crazy and goofy and how robbed. Brad, your precious Alberta has paid for most of this country, and it's being robbed and looted. And I understand your patriotism to the flag. I get that. I can buy into that. But the Laurentian elite have robbed your province. And they'll continue to rob it until Alberta does something.
Well, that's their God-given right to ruin this country.
They've done a great job.
Take from us.
I don't think it's a God-given right. I do, like I said, like I don't personally believe that we're going to see either a chunk of the country separating in the next 4 years or 10 years. But obviously I do think that and maybe I'll switch gears a little bit to the Kenney government a little bit, but like it seems like any measurement that Alberta's tried to stand up for itself blows up in its face in regards to like more of a joking headline thing, as opposed to like an actual change in regards to how Alberta's treated amongst the Confederacy. So I don't know. It might be. You're right, Beau. It might prove to be one of those things where people are like a little bit fed up with it. Now, as I said, I ultimately don't think people have the stomach for that, but we'd have to see.
People have been fed up with friggin' Ottawa for 100 years in this province. You know, I remember my parents talking about, you know, Pierre Trudeau and, you know, the energy, what do they call it? The National Energy Program, and interest rates going through the roof, and, you know, all that kind of crap. And, you know, there's always been a disdain in this province for
the only thing I think that might change a little bit is that you guys kind of got robbed with Kenney. I think everyone thought they were getting a real fighter with Kenney. And once you guys put Kenney in there, you didn't get a real fighter. You got a kind of a globalist shill that talks out of both sides of his mouth. And and I mean, when you get a real leader in there that's a hardcore separatist or hardcore Alberta First type of politician that can rally people, not a globalist shill like Kenney, you're going to see a lot bigger change. Kenney is, I hate to say it, Kenney's really just a fake. He's a disappointment. Even though I don't live in Alberta, I thought you guys had a real chance at some strong conservative leadership. But Kenney's been nothing but a disappointment, just like Doug Ford, just like Brian Pallister. All these PC or CP conservative premiers, they're all a joke. You're going to need these small separatist parties with when the real people like a Nigel Farage that was in England start to take positions of power and create a real movement. It may not be for another 5 or 10 years, but that movement will come, and then there will be change.
Yeah, as I said, like it's hard to say what the future is going to hold. As I said, I think for the most part, if you take the average citizen who's thinking about what's going on in their province, I don't think a lot of people have the stomach to make that kind of change and get away from the country or break away completely from Ottawa. But
yeah, I don't think that voice isn't there. You know, in Alberta, the voice isn't truly like, we joke around like, we're gonna fucking leave this province, country, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, we do feel part of, you know, the Union of Canada and like the fabric of Canada, and people, you know, everyday Joe, you know, our next door neighbor, you know, all that, they're not thinking that way. You know, and maybe most people don't think as deeply, you know, as the lads do on the podcast in regards to, you know, Geoff's laughing.
Yeah, deep thought.
Yeah.
No, but I agree with Beau. Maybe in one breath in regards to Kenney, and not for the same reasons per se, but I think once again Kenney's an example of a career politician who is really not actually interested in any real change of what he talks about. The system has allowed him to be voted in a federal level, allowed him to be voted in a provincial level. And it is just really his career. Now, I don't think he foresaw the last 4 years going the way it's been going. And that's probably a misjudgment on his part. And let's face it, he's looked poor most of the time while doing so. But I think it's more of an example of the fact that, like, these guys who are career politicians and people who, and I know Brad gets a little bit upset about the provincial NDP party and the stuff they put out there and certain members of their party. But I will say that once again, too, I just think they're just trolling for more votes. Nobody's really interested in a vast majority of change.
I haven't seen one politician, come to the forefront in the last year and a half, even during COVID here, that has spoken to me as like someone who wants to change, be it right wing, left wing, anybody. They've all been, throwing the manure at each other, trying to clamor for their next election. Nobody's talking about real issues. They're only talking about, the touch point issues that, are going to get them votes, right? There's nobody really jumping out there as like, hey, I'm a leader, I care. They're all, schoolboy and schoolgirls who are, career politicians who are, Kenny had probably eyes of, wanting to get into more federal politics after his premier run, right? He was just climbing the political ladder, right? So, and in my mind, he's been a friggin' letdown. And I can't even think of what an NDP government would do to this province after this COVID run. So
what people are starting to see is, it's in the States, they use the term the uni party, which is basically the Republicans and the Democrats just switching, they're the same party. They just take turns, just kind of raping and pillaging the country. And that's kind of what's been happening in Canada. I mean, when you look at all the free trade and all the things that have kind of put us in a bad situation, a lot of that stuff was signed in under the Conservatives. So the Conservative and Liberal Party, the kind of the same thing, a uni party that haven't really been, they've been more of a globalist setup. And right now you have, we're kind of in the infant stage of a populist rise up against that old establishment. Now, what that looks like 5-10 years down the road, I don't know, but it could be much different. You may see Canada fractured up into a whole bunch of small little parties that like the Mavericks and the Buffaloes, and they'll have certain amount of seats. I don't know what it looks like, but I don't see a stable 1995 Canada coming back anytime soon. It's just going to get more divided, more heated, and a little bit more broken.
To take you back, Beau, to the mid '90s, Canada wasn't the well knitted blanket put together.
That's
we went
right.
through
That's
a
right.
separatist vote
with Quebec,
and it was 1%
right.
difference of
That's right, and
of the switch. So in reality, we've been stewing for the last
you had mentioned
years.
earlier, right? When that was happening, we're all in high school or so. So as we age and get older and pay more attention, we see it as a more turbulent time, but it's always had its issues. It's always, I mean, like you said, your parents, the old man Trudeau, National Energy Board, it's been nonstop. It's been a nonstop shit show. And really the West hasn't really benefited a whole lot. It's just, especially Alberta, with all the wealth that Alberta creates, it's just been shipping that coin out east. And that's where all the votes are. And I don't know. I agree. I don't know what it's going to take to change it. If it's going to get changed, I don't know what's going to happen. As Western Canada becomes more diverse, I guess in a way it kind of loses its ability to fight that as hard as it may have. Maybe we're already weaker than we were even 10 years ago.
Well, I'm gonna switch gears slightly, but I want to ask you guys a question, and maybe we've discussed this on one of the previous times Beau has been here. But Beau kind of opened up talking about the divisiveness of what's going on with politics, and quite frankly, a lot of things, a lot of different issues. And sticking with the political parties, and I agree with Beau to a certain extent. I think the Liberals and Conservatives seem to be completely happy with just alternating governing the country to a certain extent, with a few premiers sprinkled in along the way that are of different parties. And I think that's very much how it looks in the U.S. as well. But are the major parties, whether it be Republican and Democratic in the United States and Liberal and Conservative or NDP in Canada, are they just using the social issues that have been front and center for feels like so long now as a smokescreen in regards to, hey, let's just try to get you guys in our camp, and we won't have you really doing any real research in regards to what is going to affect your livelihood in the future. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I agree 100%. I think that was my whole point to the radio call, and I think the whole notion of left versus right paradigm, then you tie that into the social issues of the left versus right. There's just nonstop division. That's why Twitter is such a cesspool. That's why everybody's exhausted. I mean, we're still talking about abortion in certain areas. In 2015, I would never think we'd be having to talk about vaccine passports. That's another divider. These are all dividing issues. In the States right now, the school system, there's a huge issues with critical race theory. They're basically teaching the youth in the United States and Canada to be, hate your history, erase your history, hate everybody that did anything bad in the past. You're just creating more hate, more division, and these politicians and these parties are fueling it. And on top of it, who's pouring the most fuel on it is the mainstream media. The mainstream media is pouring the gas from the top. The political right and left are pouring from the sides, and us poor people in the middle are unfortunately having to play this game of division. And really, at the end of the day, that's what needs to stop. We need to look and see who is dividing us, and it's really it's the political class, the elite, and they're part of that.
The media.
True, we have state-run media here. I mean, all of our mainstream media is cut a check by Trudeau. It's no different than China. They run state or Russia. They run state-run. The U.S. does not run state-run media. Well, half their.
You know what? I think honestly, like there's a segment of the population that would see it as a travesty because obviously it's created different type of art and entertainment for people throughout Canada for the time it's been on the air. But the CBC, honestly, it shouldn't be a news source.
That's right.
They shouldn't have a news function at all. That should be completely eliminated. If we're going to fund anything, it should be for arts and entertainment, and obviously Hockey Night in Canada. Bring back Don Cherry, Huawei. I guess, but sponsored by Huawei. China. It is. It is. Now it's TCL, I think, another Chinese company. So, yeah. So, not saying anything about it, I guess, but just seems a little weird. But, yeah, I don't know. I think it's time to move away from that as a news source. I think it's a joke. If you ever watch the CBC, it's pretty well attuned to. I'm going to sound like Beau here, 100%. But the liberal agenda.
Well, so going back to what I was kind of asking is like, okay, so the three of us, and I'm assuming everyone else who's listening, because obviously our listeners are above intelligence, definitely geniuses, I would say. People are going to see the forest from the trees to a certain extent. So instead of focusing on who's delivering the message, should we now be encouraging people to forego the message? Should we not be saying like, hey, we need to, and I'm getting on I'm on a train track. I don't really know where I'm going to a certain extent, but I guess the thing I would say is, do we just forego any of these issues and just go, listen, we're not listening to anything anymore? And probably one of the reasons I'm saying this is because the last like 3 or 4 weeks, I've not off the grid, but I'm not really listening or watching to anything. I've watched Euro 2021. I've watched a little bit of the hockey, but I haven't really watched a lot of anything, to be honest, and including the news. So
you know what? I get my news. What I get my news from is from Beau. Beau texts me news stories and like updates in what regards to what's going on in the Winnipeg lab that the Liberal government will not release any of the confidential information on, and they're suing the Speaker of the House because who's Liberal MP, so whatever. I guess it's crazy, but that just seems like it's protocol.
If I could touch on that, wouldn't you think that would be a main story on all the news channels? Like, would that not be a headline story? you should see that every night on the CBC, shouldn't you? Brett? Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't watch CBC, so I don't know. But I
the
did read
Globe
that
and
in
Mail,
the Globe
I think,
Mail.
is the one that
I did see that story in the Globe and Mail. So.
Just to touch on what Geoff had said, and you guys had mentioned this in your last podcast with Jon Stewart, is that at this point in time, everybody's getting their news from a different source. I look at the mainstream as total garbage. I don't trust anything they say, and that's just me. But I have an uncle who's 77, and that's all he watches. So he doesn't have access to the news that I get. So he thinks I'm crazy. He thinks, where do you get this shit? You're nuts. Now I think he's crazy because he's listening to the CBC and CTV. So we have a system in society where we have two or three, we have people like me getting my news from, and I'm not saying everywhere I get my news is legit. I understand that. I'm not saying that, hey, everything I send you, Brad, isn't verified. It's just something that I think needs to be looked at. But
some of it I'm entertained by.
Yeah, and I mean, somebody
just like,
yeah, and
could be real, could be fake, but at least
have a two-tiered system of people getting news. Like if you're a boomer, like most boomers, you're watching your evening CTV or global, and you're getting told Delta variants and vaccines and all the scare tactics and all that stuff, and that's all you're pumped into your head daily. So yeah, you're the one running around all paranoid. Now, if you're like me, you're like, that's all garbage. And then you're in the Twitter world getting news sources from all over the world and reading their stuff from different countries. And I'll admit some of that's garbage, but it puts you in a different camp of mindset. It's like, wait a minute. The stuff I'm hearing about here in Canada on the mainstream doesn't match up with any of this other stuff. And your gut instinct, as a person, like every individual is different. It's how much trust you have in the system. Myself, I don't trust the system. I mean, I don't really buy into all the experts. And when I see the Ontario health minister get caught on a hot mic saying, I just read what they put in front of me from the WHO, well, yeah, that just verifies what I already think. You people are just being told what to say by a hidden shadow, and I can see through that. Now, if most of the people that
I'll give you a prime example.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll give you a prime example. The analysts that they hire to tell you their expert opinions. So I don't know if you know the name Jeffrey Toobin, but Jeffrey Toobin's he's a CNN. He was a CNN analyst.
He's back.
Yeah, is he back?
He's back.
Well, yeah. He's the Joker that got caught pulling his putt on a Zoom call. During a live meeting. So that's the type of person that they've got providing expert analysis on government affairs.
I will
Johnny Podpuller.
Really quickly on the Jeffrey Toobin thing. Do you guys do yourself a favor and Google his re-entry into CNN? The other reporter who's introduced, like, oh, Jeffrey's back. Hey, Jeffrey, why were you gone? He's just like,
I've seen that. Well, it was almost once again quite strange and weird that interview would happen like that.
Oh, I know, it was awkward as hell. It was fun to watch as somebody who doesn't care, but I do want to go back to like Beau's point, and I agree. It was like, I'm not necessarily saying like, sorry, your uncle, 72-year-old uncle, or
give him a throw,
Uncle Johnny,
give him a throw. Uncle what?
Yeah,
Uncle Johnny. There we go. That's easier for me. So I don't expect Uncle Johnny to watch something on CTV and then go jump to his computer and go like, okay, I'm going to look up the stats that they threw out there here. But I do think that is another prime example. And like you said yourself, Beau, you're like, I understand that some of the stuff that I'm sharing, some of the stuff I'm looking at is unverified news source. And I'm not saying you have to go deep dive on everything, but if you can recognize that, like, listen, some of this is probably going to be proven incorrect, or at least it's not the full story of what's going forward, it proves that the onus is on the individual to go look up the information that they're being fed to verify that it is legit information. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's the only thing we can ever do, is actually just count on the individual to go do the right thing with it.
I think you just hit it on the head, because let's face facts. The people putting the news out, they're in their minds, they're legitimate news organizations because they have money backing them and they've been around, they're institutions, But at the end of the day, they're just businesses. And those businesses are trying to gain listeners and advertising dollars. And, the more people that watch them, the more money they get, blah, 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 very simple. So that's why, before the pod started tonight, I was talking to Beau because he was talking about my rant a little bit about CTV News and the Delta variant. They brought in somebody over the last year and a half. I've seen the same people on the news telling me about, COVID-19, where we're at in the world, how it's going in Alberta. And then they brought out some new joker out of the closet and be like, the Delta variant will be worse than ever in the fall. And it's just like, no, it won't.
Well, we don't know. And I think
I'm calling my shot right now. It's not going to be.
But I like to the point, and Beau, you'll have to forgive me because I know you're not much on the hockey front, but it's the same. It's the same thing. Like there's the rumor that Duncan Keith may or may not be traded to the Edmonton Oilers from Chicago, and I don't know the amount of articles I've seen where I'm like, a lot of people are projecting that this is a good idea, and I'm like, it's a 38-year-old defenseman with declining numbers. Whoa.
Do we have to have another podcast about this? You don't think that's a good idea?
No, I don't. But yeah, we can do that another podcast. But my point being is that I read the articles and I read a few things saying like promoting how it was a good idea, and I'm like, I'm gonna go look this stuff up. I gotta go verify that if I share, because I don't share this opinion. I want to see if I'm totally way off base or not.
Geoff, but he's been playing in front of shit goalies, and like he's had a revolving door of partners through the last couple of years. It's a declining team. He's 38, but if you reduce the numbers of minutes he plays, he's a solid, top 4 defenseman still.
You have undeniable proof of that.
I guarantee you it, man. The guy has got two Norris trophies, 3 Stanley Cups, a Conn Smythe trophy. You know what that'd do for the room?
Yeah, but he won that stuff like 8 years ago.
Fuck.
I smell another steak coming my way. But anyway, sorry. No, as I said, it's one of those things where, like I said, I think you have to go do your own research on it. Or if you're just gonna be force fed anything, you're gonna go down the wrong path. Sorry,
do some more research.
But
I'm done with it.
But back to our Canadian broadcasters, which they're all getting a check from Trudeau, right? So, they're
mm-hmm.
All of them get a check.
They all get a
Even
check.
Even CTV, Global, they all get a.
Not one of them would survive, subsidy? I don't think, without it. True North, Rebel, couple Post Millennial. Those are independent news medias that are obviously not Trudeau friendly. But all the main ones that Brad, like the ones that are on TV at night, showing you the weather and the latest Delta scare, that is all paid by Trudeau, or you and I as a taxpayer. We pay for that. So they have an owner, and that's the Liberal government. Now, O'Toole has come out and campaigned that he will defund the CBC. So you can imagine how much love the CBC is going to give O'Toole. None. So
no, of course not. Yeah, you can't proclaim that I'm gonna.
Yeah,
as soon as I marry this woman, I'm gonna start hitting her.
Exactly. I mean, but like
you can't.
Like Rosemary.
Here's the other thing. Like I have a hard time imagining that Trudeau could get a majority, and maybe it's just because maybe I'm in my own little universe of how I think, but I can't fathom that. To me, if the amount of shit he's pulled. From SNC to the Wee scandals to this Winnipeg CCP military stealing viruses and running back to the Wuhan lab. How can this man he should actually be getting arrested from the RCMP at this point, not getting majority government in Canada. And for the pollsters to come out and say he's got a 9-point lead, I'm sorry, but I feel like that's such. I just cannot fathom that. I don't even know anyone like heavily.
But polls are skewed as well. You got to look at where you're getting your polls from.
And that's
Hillary Clinton was leading the U.S. election.
That's what we're saying on everything. Like anything, like back to Uncle Johnny, where this started. That poor bastard's watching TV every night, getting fed bullshit, and he has no idea.
Yeah, you need to bring Uncle Johnny needs to come on the podcast. We need to have a chat.
Him and I go back and forth. And he sits at a table with a bunch of A&W people his same age, and I'm like, you're all drunk on vodka down there. You have no idea what's happening. And they think I'm crazy. They're like, Weyburn, yeah, Weyburn. And I'm
Weyburn?
like, these guys, I'm like, they've been spoon-fed bullshits for so long, they wouldn't recognize the truth if it slapped them. So I came to a realization, I can't blame my uncle. He's been spoon-fed bullshit every night to the point where I just can't get through to him. And he thinks I'm off in conspiracy land.
You know what? It's like our favorite topic du jour on those Canadian Lads podcast, the UFO UAP topic of the day. And I'm not going to lie, that thing has fizzled out like a friggin' airless balloon over the last couple weeks. After getting that Nothing Burger report, that thing has they did the job, Geoff. They put a bullet in that thing big time.
Oh, absolutely. No, and it's one of those things that like I don't want to keep saying that I think Beau is right in some regards, but like no, it is just
you,
I don't
keep doing it though.
I keep doing it, but well, because I do agree. But I think it goes to kind of prove that when a government wants to control the message and it wants to control what people are going to do next in regards to it, the UFO report is a very good example of it. When I texted you that night that it came out, all I wrote was, "Well, that was a whole lot of fucking nothing," and it was. The only thing worth mentioning in the whole report is that of 144 unexplained flying objects, there was only 143 of them. They didn't know what it was, and they have no idea how to figure it out unless they have better technology. But you're right. Since then, everything's gone silent, and I think that's exactly what the government intended to do. So I was also wrong. I thought they were going to use it as a scare tactic to increase monetary funding for the military, but no, they just decided they didn't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, because they can't tell us what it is because one, either they don't know or it's too shocking for us to know.
No, I don't think it is. I just think it's one of those situations where they're just like, we don't know what it is, and we're just going to shut down the conversation. It's like what you do with your kids. Like you just go like, how come the moon follows our car? I don't know. Shut up and go to sleep.
Well, if you guys look at every major event in the last 70 years, if you started with the JFK assassination, government shut it. They feed you your story. That's the story. They move on. If you look at the 9/11, same thing. Lots of red flags in all these situations, and there's no real journalism to break into it and crack it open. You get the story that they want you to hear. Same as the coronavirus. You guys mentioned on your last podcast how until Jon Stewart came out and highlighted that this thing was probably created in a lab. Everyone thought this thing came from a bat. It never came from a bat. Anyone who thinks this came from a bat shouldn't be voting. They're not smart enough to vote. You should lose your voting rights. You're too stupid if you think this came from a bat.
I do like it though, and it does go to prove once again. It's just like, look how easily that message was able to be shared once it was with somebody that, as the generality, people agreed with. It's just like, oh, we all love Jon Stewart, and like I said in that podcast, I'm like, I enjoy Jon Stewart as a comedian. I loved The Daily Show when I was in college. Like Jon Stewart's what he said on that show doesn't change my opinion because I would have already I'm like, well, there's a lab where they work on this in the city in which it was released. I'm like, it's at least plausible that that's where it originated from.
It was like blocks away from that wet market. But
there was an effort made, whether it be on social media or in the mainstream media, where it was like, if you say that, you were accused of being ignorant,
Trudeau
racist.
pulled that shit in Parliament a couple weeks ago, where somebody started bringing up China, and he pretty much called them a racist. And it's like, what are you doing, man? They're like, it's critical thought. It's like they're questioning things that are happening. There seems to be some sort of issue around the Winnipeg lab and two, Chinese nationals that were deported from Canada, and nobody's willing to come to the table from the current government to tell the public what happened, because there's obviously something bad happened. And I hope coronavirus didn't get created in Canada.
Well, and there's a
That
chance
would
it could
really
be.
suck
And
for
I mean,
us.
like some experts have said, this isn't just, if this turns out to be what we think it is, this is espionage. This is major. This is stuff out of Tom Clancy novels where people are like, holy shit. And I mean, Trudeau is now taking an MP, the speaker who he nominated as a Liberal MP, to court. He's doing everything in his power to make sure that we don't find out what happened. I mean, where's the RCMP? Like, I don't even understand how we're this far down the road. And then the CBC comes on and says he's going to win a majority election. Like, we're living in an upside down shit show that I don't understand how anyone can listen to any of this and fathom that it's real.
You know what we have to do? We have to do this. And the next time maybe we have Beau on, we're going to have a homework assignment. And we're going to predict what the world looks like in the year, let's say 2050. How many more years is that?
30.
What is that? It's
29.
29 years. So we'll be old. We'll be old guys. We'll be like Uncle Johnny by then. So what does the world look like for our kids? What does the world look like when we're sitting at the A&W in Waverly?
We'll be cooked just like him.
When we're Uncle Johnny.
We'll be cooked just like him, spewing out a bunch of mainstream bullshit because we won't know how to run the new tech phone. That's right.
Well, one of us won't be. Beau will still be bringing the news from the fringe, which is fine. But
he will.
Yeah, no, but there, yeah, no, and that's exactly it. And I would once again point out that it's just like it's up to the individuals to go, okay, I see what's going on. Exactly. Somebody mentions, hey, there's some plausible information, and there seems to be further evidence that this virus was manufactured in a lab. And there seems to be some plausible information and something that we need to be concerned about labs in our own country in regards to who's working there. And you're right. All of a sudden you have somebody shouting racist or we're going to take you to court and stuff like that. And like Beau's response here is it's up to the citizen and the individual to go like, this does seem fishy. Why is this going down the way? Why is somebody screaming racist while putting their fingers in their ears and going la, 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 la at the end of it? It's just like, it should be questioned. And the unfortunate reality is that the question comes down to at the next election, because you witness this type of stuff, because you find it either acceptable or unacceptable, who are you going to cast your vote for? And I think I don't want to sound like an arrogant fuck, but I do think a majority of the population doesn't care to learn about this type of stuff, and they don't care. They just want to trust their elected officials without any questioning. And there's a big chunk of the population that, like I mentioned earlier, they buy into the smokescreen. They want to listen to, oh, this guy's up with my social issues. This person's down with these people being oppressed. This guy doesn't speak of this type of stuff, therefore he doesn't care about it. And they just want to vote that way to a certain extent without it actually making a difference in their world. And I think that's the unfortunate reality of the situation.
You're right. You're always right. You're right. You're right. 100%.
Except for the geniuses that listen to those Canadian lads.
You're gonna scare our listeners off. You're gonna piss them off, Geoff. Stop it.
I'm targeting specific listeners that I'm trying to make good.
Well,
the mentor on Twitter.
Brad, you mentioned on the last podcast, and I'm just going to touch on it again. Now, hypothetical, let's not get too crazy, but let's just play it out that the fall comes and your Delta variant kicks up. We're going into lockdown. Your kids are going to school with masks. Me being the non-vaccinated, and I have no problem saying that to anyone, I'm now the threat. I'm the one that created the new variant, and all of Canada is now going to be locked down, and everyone's going to be crushed because the 30% non-vaxxed created a new variant, and we're all going to die. Are you going to buy that story? Are you going to roll with that story and go, God damn it, Beau, you son of a bitch? Or are you going downtown? Are you going downtown to picnic tables and say, I've had enough of this bullshit? Which scenario are you going to do? Because you know that's.
I'm getting in my gasoline pickup truck.
So you're not going down
to the great province of Saskatchewan.
You're not going downtown to
find your house number. I'm grabbing like eight vials of Pfizer, and I'm going to shove them down your throat.
Unfortunately,
Get the vaccine,
when the
man.
media pumps that bullshit story, that's what we're going to be up against. And I can already see it coming, and I hope it doesn't. But as I know how goofy the media is and how goofy most of the Canadian public are, that's what's going to come. And then the non-vaxxed are going to be the big, and like, let's just touch on that for a sec. If you're vaxxed, you're protected. That's why everyone got it. So I don't understand why the narrative of like even the way they push that with lotteries. We've got homeless people sleeping in Calgary, people that can't get food. Kenny and Pallister are throwing millions around with free ice cream on top of it to go get a jab. Like, nothing adds up. Nothing makes sense. None of this shit makes any sense to anyone that sits down and rationally thinks about it. Would you agree, or am I the Looney Tune?
I'm gonna give you an example here. So the mask thing, it's really interesting. So we talk about how it affected people and how it's, is it good, is it bad? I'll give you a personal experience. So this weekend, obviously, or masks became okay not to wear anymore. The government told us that we didn't have to wear them anymore. So my little guy and I, we stopped at a gas station in northern Alberta, and we filled some gas up in the vehicle, and I'm like, let's go into the store. And he's like, Dad, I don't have a mask. And I'm like, dude, you don't need a mask. You know how fucking excited this kid was? Like, he was vibrating to walk through like a friggin' roadside store without a mask. Like, he actually pulled me. He's like, I'm not wearing a mask right now. It's awesome. And he's like, it affected him. He's 8 years old, and it affected him. And he essentially was telling me how excited he was not to wear this piece of fabric over his mouth.
So back to my question.
Psychologically affected.
If we get the Delta variant and they want to mask your boy again in the fall, what are you going to do about it?
Good. I'm probably going to say something at the school. I'm going to voice my opinion because I don't think it's something we need to do anymore. I want to hear that the Canadian. You did. Because you know what? Yeah. I did my part. I did my part. I got my vaccines, and I'm hoping the teachers got their vaccines, and we see case counts drop. Over 50% now are double vaxxed in Alberta. People have done their part. Now it's up to us to make sure that everybody's protected. But at the end of the day, this isn't about the kids or anything like that. They're just trying to protect the healthcare system, and I'm okay with that. But we've done that, and now it's time to move forward. And that's my take on it. It's time to move forward because the damage that has already been done is done. People got sick, people died, people committed suicide, people lost jobs, economies were crushed, and businesses were closed. You got to stop, and now you got to move forward. And I respect your opinion on all of that. I respect the fact that you did what you needed to do. My opinion, and lots won't like it, the means didn't justify the ends. We went way overboard. I don't believe that the COVID. I don't believe the hype as much as we said. We know it's a 99.97 survival rate for people in their 70s. Children are 99.999. People my age in decent health are 99.98. There's drugs out there like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin that can help you. There's multiple things you can do. Now, to mask us, destroy the economy. But that being said, Beau, they didn't know. They didn't.
There was lots of people that wanted to talk, but once again, our mainstream wouldn't let that narrative even show up on the TV. It was just everybody's on the same page. That was my other beef. I told you guys in the one podcast, bring out all the lockdown experts, bring out all the non-lockdown experts, let them talk to the public in a free and open society, then tell all the mask vaccine people that want to do that, say, hey, we're going to do that. We're going to give you everything we can. And then the people like myself who are willing to just continue to live life and take the risk, you guys can do that. Those that want to be protected and have schooling from home could do that. But they didn't do that. They never, ever gave us the other side of the story. The other side, there's multiple doctors, multiple people with education, more educated than Hinshaw and all these other. experts from around the world saying everything we're doing is wrong. Those people didn't get a fair shake at the mainstream news conferences. They just didn't. And all I'm saying is, if we come to the fall and they try to pull this shit again, I hope the average Canadian says, enough is enough. I'm not putting up with this. My child's not going to school with a mask. I'm not putting a booster shot in me for the 4th time. We're going to stand up for our rights. If that doesn't happen, I'm going to be extremely disappointed, because the country will have been played again. And that's my opinion. Now, lots of people will say don't agree with it. That's fine. I don't care. It's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong on some of it, but that's where I stand. I think the beer's kicking in.
You know what? That's the beauty of this, though, right? Is like,
no, I know you.
I don't typically agree with you on this point, but
yeah.
But that's the beauty of this forum, is that we can sit down and have this critical, thought discussion, and not, come at each other with, verbal assaults and call each other loons or anything like that. We don't agree, but at the end of the day, we've got to find a way forward. That's, for me, it's finding a way forward out of this, because the damage, like I said, has been done already. People have died. People have got sick. People have lost jobs. People have put bullets in their brains, hung themselves.
We both want the end result, and I think at the end of the day, that's the beauty. You had said on your last podcast, Brad and Geoff, opinions change. Opinions are always changing. I might change my opinion next year if I see 45-year-olds dropping dead. Maybe I end up on a respirator in the hospital, and I live, and Brad goes, that dumb son of a bitch should have got his vaccine. That might change my mind, right? That could happen. But at this point in time, my mind is fixated that this has been overplayed, and that they're not going to coerce me with ice cream and lotteries and jabs for my freedom to come back. That is not the play that I'm going to walk down. And I'm not going to play into that so that we can all move along. That's like the old saying, don't everyone jump off the bridge. This is a train wreck in society, this whole COVID, with the lab, where it came from. And when I seen this dumpster fire, I just decided I'm going to stand out of the way and watch and do very little to myself. I mean, I hope these vaccines are the real deal and everything, and there's no side effects. That's what I really hope. But as for right now, I'm just going to take a step aside and watch the dumpster fire. And when the dumpster fire starts to look like it's going to have a clear path, and we know what's right and what's truth and what's not, I may change my opinion. But up till now, I just cannot support anything that the Canadian federal government has done. And the mainstream media, I think a lot of this is way out of line. But I could change my opinion if I'm on a respirator.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Things change along the way. You could be like, oh, fuck, I got hit hard. And you might. I think Brad's opinions are weak, but
you're weak.
No, I'm not. No, I said it's one of those things that, like, I think the best you can do is you make your decisions based upon what you think is right or wrong, or what you want to do. I said, like, I'll speak in regards to the personal thing. I'm not double vaccinated, and there's a specific reason I haven't got the double vaccination yet. And I'm not saying I'm not getting it, but I am holding off for a specific thing. Now, that all being said, is this like, am I risking something? Am I not risking something? Who knows? I'm making my decision based upon the best information I think I have going forward, and I'll make my decisions changing as they go across the board. And at the end of the day, I'm ultimately going to probably choose to get the double vaccination because I want to go to Hawaii in November. But I'm also probably choosing not to get any boosters or do anything past that because I don't want to keep doing this type of stuff, and I'm willing to take the risk past that point. But we all have to kind of just go with it. And you're right.
Well, my
opinion might change on this.
If we want
we'll wait
this,
and see.
I think where I differ from most people, if we want this all to stop, we as a collective society need to put our foot down and say, no, we're not doing this. No, and we're not doing this. As we coerce along with what they want us to do, it's just going to be more and more. That's how it works. Like, we think that we're not going back to normal. After we all get double jabbed, if the whole country gets to 95% double jab, the vaccine passport's fully implemented, and you're going to be on boosters and whatever the next bullshit thing that comes along, that's going to be implemented. I've had many arguments with my buddy Mike, who's non-vaccinated. He thinks if everybody gets to 80%, they'll leave us alone, Beau. I'm like, no, that's not how it's going to work. You want less people running out and doing this, in my opinion, because if the number stays at 55%, then they realize 55% or 50 or 45% of society is not willing to just play along. So that's my opinion. And I know lots of people don't like that opinion, but that's my opinion. And I don't want to see 90% lined up with me having a passport to walk into the grocery store to buy bananas. That's just not the society I want to live in.
Fair enough. So I'm being to be selfish here. We're coming up on an hour here. We don't need to kind of keep going. And quite frankly, I like to go see the Stanley Cup get awarded in about 10 minutes time here. So,
is there a score in the hockey game?
Yeah, it's 1-0. So I want to go see this. Now, this all being said, why don't we leave with some parting shots? Brad, how would you go before our guest Beau here?
Parting shots. I don't have any tonight.
All right, fine. I'll go, and I will say that I think in a lot of ways, I think the important thing is that every individual citizen goes and does their research, decides what they think is best, and stands up for the beliefs that they put forward. Now, in a situation like what Beau was projecting forward, he might not get to the numbers that he is required for those people to follow him into that path. But that doesn't mean that what he's doing makes it right or wrong. It's doing what he thinks is best, and he's hoping that a certain amount of the population gets behind him, which is, quite frankly, all we can really hope for in life. So that being said, Beau, you're pretty much saying what you want, and you're also double mouthing it by saying, "Oh, people think I'm a loon." No, man, it's fine. Dude.
Well, and if I could,
you're doing what you think is best, and I stand up for that. If I could
jump in the culture that we're in, I feel like we have to walk towards the fire. So if you're being called a racist or you're being called out for things, and you believe in them, it's Andrew Breitbart that said it. I'm not going to be bullied and pushed around by the main theme. If I feel like that's not right, I'm gonna stand my ground. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong. But as right now, nobody likes being called racist or anti-vax or some kind of uneducated disaster because you don't go along with the mainstream. And I feel like the more society stands up and pushes back and says, no, I'm not going to let my employer or my neighbor or my uncle or my aunt or my cousin bully me because they think that they know right. I'm going to push my thoughts and I'm going to hold my ground. That's what we need to do as a society, and we can move along in a balanced nature that way. But right now, the left. Go ahead.
I think I was just going to say, I think, I'm excited to hear more about this Uncle Johnny. And, he gets your motor going.
We never ever get mad at each other. I think half the time he just winds me up. But yeah, you know what? I get where he's coming from because I know where he's getting his news, right? So if that's where you're getting all your information, that's going to be your perspective. You're a product of your environment, right?
I've got the great unifier. I will unite people on every side of the spectrum. It will ensure that there's a unified front against any government lockdowns or telling us what to do. The government comes forward, says, we've looked at the data. We see that the two biggest factors in regards to mortality when it comes to the COVID vaccine is BMI of 25 and above. And your age. You can't control your age. Everyone gets your BMI down to 25. You will have
right.
the entire country
That's no
against
different
that
than the passport, is it?
Because nobody's fucking doing that. So, no. So, that being said, Brad, any parting thoughts?
You already asked me that, and I do have a parting thought.
Well, then why don't you just jump in and say it?
No, 25 years ago tonight, Hollywood Hogan, WCW. That was a fantastic evening. When he went heel, oh man, to cycle that back to the beginning of this conversation, It's like we were in I feel like I was in an hour-long wrestling match. You know, all sides, everybody in a battle royale tonight. I love it.
Feel it.
That's my parting shot.
It's good, though. It's good.
I didn't think that, but...
I blame Geoff.
All right. That being said, thank you very much for listening to Those Canadian Lads. I'm Geoff.
I'm Brad.
And to our guest, Beau. Thanks a lot for coming on, Beau.
Good night, everybody. Thanks again for listening to Those Canadian Lads podcast. Give us a follow on social media. We're on the Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you like what you heard, give us a follow and share it with your friends. Thanks again, and have a great night.